Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Global Partnership for the Prevention of Armed Conflict Peace Education Working Group's webinar on exploring innovative technology for peace building. My name is Jen Batten, and I'm the co-chair of our Peace Education Working Group. I'm excited today to have Dr. Warters join us today. He's a Quaker with a lifelong interest in peacemaking and conflict resolution and a facilitator for the Alternatives to Violence Project of Michigan. I first worked with him in his role as at Wayne State University, but prior to moving to Michigan, Dr. Warters was a faculty member and director of the doctoral program in conflict analysis and resolution at Nova Southeastern University in Florida. He's the author of the book Mediation in the Campus Community, and he was the director of the Masters of Arts in Dispute Resolution program at Wayne State University in Detroit. So he has a wealth and breadth of experience to share some of these great tools. I first saw this presentation that he did for Ashland University in Ohio, one of our peace conferences. They have the Center for Nonviolence. It was wonderful, and I thought it would be great for all of our global peace builders to get some additional ideas for tools they could use. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Warters. Thank you.
Well, good morning, friends, or good afternoon. I'm so pleased that you're with us. I get excited about talking about technology and peacemaking, and Jennifer always encourages me to talk about what I know and share it. So hopefully I'll show you not just like an individual tech platform, but sort of the forest, the landscape of technology and peacemaking, give you a sense of sort of the scope of it, and perhaps you'll be able to see some things that you want to dig into further. I have the slides available. You can see a slide link there. I also will show this QR code at the end, and we'll also find other ways to post it and share it with you. So I just want to say a little bit about my journey. As Jennifer mentioned, I've had a great career working in the fields of mediation and conflict resolution. And I was always interested in the idea of if you have a space or a platform or a place where you work, finding ways to have that be you can do peace work from that platform. I've trained myself and been trained by training lots of others as community mediators. I've developed mediation services on college campuses. Jennifer mentioned the book I wrote about it. I got into tech early in my career. I had something called the Conflict Resolution Tech blog. For maybe 6 or 7 years, I posted regularly things I found that were interesting in the tech field that related to conflict resolution, learning materials, applications. I developed a couple of grant-funded clearinghouses for conflict resolution, the first one on campus mediation support, and the second one on conflict resolution in educational settings, which is still available at creducation.net. I also helped host annual online Cyber Week events, we called them back then, that explored technology and conflict resolution for a broad community. And I've attended international online dispute resolution forums where we've explored tools for resolving conflicts using the internet. And I've taught a course on communication technology and conflict multiple times. So I feel like I've been steeped in this field. I have a picture here of me when I got my first smartphone. I'd had a flip phone, and my son was trying to show me how it worked. And you can see sort of a dazed look in my eye as I get to know my first smartphone. Technology has always been sort of an area where we expect the future to be bright because of technology. This was a picture from long ago showing sort of the home of the future. The telephone has a TV as well as sound. So this idea of techno-optimism has been an idea that's been with us for a while. I really enjoy this cartoon, which has now become real with AI, the GPS for conversations, where this person might be a little shy. It's continue talking next 12 seconds, prepare to change topics, exit conversation next right, recalculating. This idea that we can be coached by technology in our social interactions. Talking about peace tech, it's sort of a long history. As long as there's been technology and change in technology, people have been trying to use it for good as well as for ill. A couple of examples that you can pull out. The telegraph really changed things in terms of crisis diplomacy because you could have these quick connections between distant areas and headquarters or the home country. Lincoln used it during the Civil War. There was a situation where a couple of British officers were captured, and there was a chance that we'd get into war with Britain in 1861, and they used the telegraph to offset that. Hot air balloons were used for reconnaissance to monitor borders and give early warning. Early radar development provided time for de-escalation. And then, of course, the famous nuclear hotline between Moscow and Washington in the 60s, the Cuban Missile Crisis almost blew up the whole world, and they decided that there needed to be a way to talk back and forth between leaders. This is an interesting new textbook, second edition, on the history of diplomacy and technology that in the slides that I shared, I have hot links, like active links, so you can go and find these different things. When I think about tech, there's so many different functions that it has. It can be used to agitate people, stir things up, to mobilize groups, to organize. It can inform and educate people. It can help us build community and a sense of togetherness. We can share perspectives. We can assist people in making good decisions. We can seek to build consensus. We can construct agreements. We can create fear and doubt. We can challenge corruption. We can surveil and document and so much more. So tech has lots of affordances, and you have to think about how you're going to use them. So I wanted to talk about online dispute resolution, which is sort of a whole subgenre that began in the late 1990s. There was when the internet started to have e-commerce, when people were buying and selling on the internet, conflicts began to emerge. And so ODR came along to try to handle some of these conflicts. So ODR is sort of a broad area, but it includes facilitative processes to help people manage conflicts, such as conciliation, sort of helping people change the way they talk to each other, or mediation to actually try to get between people and solve a conflict, and facilitated negotiation, where you can assist parties to work out a satisfying solution. There's a variety of processes, such as where you can advise people about how strong their case is. They call it case appraisal, or there might be a mock trial where you don't take it to a real trial, but you try a pretend one, and neutral evaluation, where somebody takes a look at the facts and decides who might have the stronger case. And then there are determinative processes like arbitration or adjudication, where you agree that whatever the online tool says, you will go by. These are assisted by technology, the internet, of course, and they can be used for cases that happen online or offline. And what's interesting about ODR is that many online disputes are across jurisdictions. So there might be a Japanese and Egyptian, or there might be somebody from the US and somebody from South Asia. And so what courts are responsible. So ODR can cross legal jurisdictions and be applied in those kind of cases. So ODR has an idea where technology is thought of as the fourth party. In dispute resolution, we talk about the mediator, which is in the bottom right of this diagram, is the third party. So there's two parties having a conflict, and then the third party is the mediator. And so ODR started to talk about technology as the fourth party in the room that can help parties do things like have discussions, store information, evaluate facts, calendar the next meeting, that sort of thing. So the idea was that the human is in charge, but the technology is going to assist them in doing things better, faster, and smarter. Online dispute resolution systems assume that disputes tend to have a pattern of escalation. So they would go through different dispute types, where at the bottom of the staircase here, you have diagnosis, where, for instance, back in the days with eBay, there might be a problem is the problem that it's the quality of the product that you bought, it wasn't as described, or that it didn't arrive, or it arrived damaged. So diagnosing what the problem is an early step, beginning to figure that out. Then there's negotiation, where you might say, what would you need to solve this? What would make you happy? And negotiate online. If that doesn't work between the two parties, they could move to mediation, where they have some help by a third party to decide what they're going to do. Then there can be evaluation, where somebody else decides to take over the case and give you their opinion, or arbitration, where a final decision is made. So you'd want it to start low and then move up the scale so people have more control. So in this case, you can see toward the left, the lower side, these tend to be non-binding, facilitative. Participants control the outcome. But as you go up the staircase, it becomes more binding. Somebody else is telling you what to do, and the third parties are controlling that outcome. So the idea was that processes online would be like a filter, so that the high majority of cases would never go to arbitration or never go to mediation. They would be handled by the system in the process. If you get interested in ODR, there's a lot of good resources now. For many years, there's been a group that they post their stuff at odr.info, the National Center for Technology and Dispute Resolution, and they have standards and principles and guidelines for setting up programs. They have a variety of materials. There's also an International Council for Online Dispute Resolution at iCoder. And so that's a good place to sort of stay in touch. Here's an example of a couple of dashboards of these online dispute resolution platforms. They've gotten more sophisticated over the years, but you can see across the top there the categories I mentioned: diagnosis, negotiation, mediation, arbitration. And the idea is that a company or a government office or a court could combine these different tools depending on their population and what their needs are to create sort of a workflow for managing a dispute. Modular Online Dispute Resolution Implementation Assistant, MODRIA. Here's another example of the sort of the advanced platforms, odr.com, and they're promoting their skill sets and their tools. So when I was coming into the field of conflict resolution, I studied an undergraduate degree in conflict resolution, and then I got my Ph.D. in the program on the analysis and resolution of conflicts at Syracuse University. And as I was coming along, there was a concept called dispute systems design, which was the idea that we don't want to just have mediation, for instance. We want to have a system in place within an organization or a group that has a flow to it and makes sense to people. And so dispute systems became an idea. Now digital dispute systems design is sort of the new thing, because so much of what we do is online. So this new 2025 textbook on using technology and preventing and resolving conflicts is really a good example. It has case studies, and it's sort of designed for law school professors and conflict studies teachers, but it has a lot of teaching materials and quite useful. Back in 2022, this book, Integrating Technology into Your Dispute Resolution Practice, Making Friends with the Fourth Party. There's that fourth party idea. After COVID, when we had the shutdowns, mediators who were so used to meeting face-to-face started going online in Zoom, because that was the only way they could keep their businesses going. And they had to learn how to use Zoom to mediate disputes. And so this book by Dan Rainey, who was with the Federal Mediation Conciliation Service, Federal Mediation Service in the United States, sort of coaching them in becoming familiar with the technology, helping your clients be comfortable, and doing kinds of check-ins with your parties to make sure that you're not losing anybody. What I was excited about, having supported and trained peer mediators over the years, is that young people were starting to use video mediation as well. So there's the Peer Mediation Online project, that they have a tournament where they mediate cases online. And you can see their handbook there on the left for their tournament process. Other types of tools that have come along, this one's called Smart Settle. The idea, there was a concept called blind bidding, where they've discovered that somebody who's in a dispute doesn't want to reveal their bottom line. They don't want to talk about how much they really want, how much they really need. They want to maybe start out higher and then adjust downward. So blind bidding was this idea that the system, the computer keeps your bottom line secret and then sees if the two parties, if there's overlap between the two proposals, then we can suggest a settlement. So Smart Settle built on this idea and uses algorithms to help parties negotiate back and forth with proposals and seeing if they overlap or not. You can actually try out the platform at this enegotiation.org. There's a sort of a demo that you can try out. It's pretty interesting. Another category of tools is what I would call conflict coaching tools. There's a lot of knowledge about principled negotiation and the ways that you might address a conflict that you're facing in your own life. So this one's based on a book, Making Conflict Work. And it basically asks you like, what kind of dispute is this? Is this a family dispute or a workplace dispute? And then what's your relationship? How much power do you have? And it gives you some advice as to what approach might make the most sense to keep yourself from getting deeper into trouble, but also getting your needs met. So that's an example, a conflict coaching tool. This one is more recent. ChatGPT and AI has really changed the way that information can be organized and shared. And so this one, it's built on top of ChatGPT, and it's designed for mediation, people who run mediation programs or maybe court mediation officers, or it can help people who have a dispute themselves as well. But you can see that you decide when you go in, you describe what role you're playing, and then you ask it some questions. And it provides sort of best practice advice about like, what would be a good opening statement to make in this dispute? And here's the parties I'm dealing with. What might be some things I want to make sure I cover in my opening statement? And then it will feed back some sample language. So it's designed by John Landy, who was a colleague of mine in Florida when I worked there. He's very prolific as a mediation researcher and scholar. And so he fed in all of his materials and research as well as much from the field. So it sort of draws on good information and provides helpful coaching for people who work in the intermediation role, like mediating. You can see that long link there, but you can actually go and try it for yourself. Here's an example of a chatbot-based AI consumer champion, which is do not pay, helps people deal with parking tickets, subscriptions, consumer complaints. It has a whole range of different services to help you sort of figure out how am I going to go after this larger company or larger organization that's I don't think is treating me fairly. Another broad area of work is what the field of civic engagement. It's people looking to have input onto the decisions that are made that affect them. So there's a group called the International Association for Public Participation Practitioners, IAPT. And they have this idea of a continuum of the ways that technology can be used to help the public. And so at the left end of the spectrum, you have just informing the public, doing a good job about telling them about things that are happening in their community, maybe related to project development or toxic situation or new building. And then you can consult the public and get their opinions on things, or you can involve them directly in the process, in the design process. You can collaborate, or you can empower them with a final decision and let the public know what's happening and how their input was used. And so IAPT has different regional groups in the USA and Canada, different places, and they've done a lot of work in this area. There are plenty of public participation platforms out there. I'm showing you a few screenshots here. Smart Participation was one that was used in New York City. They had a proposal to deal with traffic congestion in Manhattan and downtown. And so there's a lot of different opinions about whether they should put surge pricing, like higher pricing if you go into the city. And so smart participation was used to get people's input and sort of figure out what to do. Mind Mixer is another example where you're trying to get maybe a development plan for a community and you can involve people. A couple more of these that are more recent. Polis is become very popular in terms of helping make sense of large groups of data of lots of people. And your priorities, there's a ranking system of these tools, and your priorities is the top rated tool in terms of usability, friendliness. So it's getting high rates. I wanted to show you this. We are people powered. Is a global hub that focuses on public participation, and they have a video here I want to share.
Usually when you think about democracy, you think about putting a vote on a ballot.
Sometimes we only think about, oh, let's vote, voting every 4 years, every 6 years. Well, what happened in between?
In a world where we had real participatory democracy, people would get what they need to thrive.
Participatory democracy is a type of democracy in which people make the decisions that affect their lives. It enables all of us to work with government to decide on laws, on policies, on budgets, rather than only electing other people to decide for us.
Come December 2016, we voted out a dictator. The question was, what's next for the communities as well? And that's when we started talking about the issue of budget.
I'm from Colombia, and for decades we have been struggling to find peace. I started to realize that if we can find the spaces where we can work together and where everyone has a voice, perhaps people can solve their problems through words and not through arms.
Who taught you? Our mothers, our parents, who else? Yes, of course. Okay.
It's not just about influencing, having a say. It's really about being able to say, we are the experts, we know what needs to be changed, and we know how it should work in the future.
At the end of the day, we're just coming up with different methods. The end goal of having the citizen being heard, that's what unites all of us.
What this field needs is to have lots of people working together, collaborating effectively, sharing their expertise, sharing their pains, sharing their glows, and people power allows that.
Our role is really to bring together the community of organizations and leaders and advocates who are building participatory democracy and to help them do their job better.
I was introduced to the participatory budgeting playbook that People Power developed, and I found it very interesting because I knew the term, but now the tool, the approaches that you have to employ in making sure it becomes a meaningful participatory democracy approach, I didn't know about it.
Every member at People Powered or every organization is struggling with things like finding access to funding, finding ways to work with their local governments, finding ways also to reach out to people, right? So being part of this community, the mentorship, the resource center, or even the playbook makes your journey a little bit easier, so you don't feel like you're the only one who's struggling with this.
People need to hear from each other so that they can stop reinventing the wheel, so that they can learn from each other, share case studies, or just sit with someone who understands the same challenges that you're going through.
People Powered is really unique. It prioritizes the work in the Global South and leadership from the Global South, and it really focused on field building in a way that's inclusive.
One of our principles is that there are many ways to do participatory democracy, and we're not gonna tell you how to do it. We're gonna make your work easier.
People Powered not just talks the talk, but walks the walk.
So our members are the ones who are deciding how we spend our money, they are building the resources, they are doing the training. Everything that we do is in partnership and in community.
For me, participatory democracy means having a voice, and having a mechanism to have that voice heard.
I find it very encouraging to think about people having voice and being able to participate. So recently, the United Nations Development Program and People Power worked together to develop a guide to these different platforms, and it's available online. Really nicely done. And one of the things that they developed is a digital participation tool rating platform where they have 30 or more of these different tool sets that have now been developed, many of which are free. And they describe sort of their strengths and weaknesses, how they might be used. So I recommend that as if you're thinking about getting into this sort of working with a group to gather opinions and take action together, this is useful. So another sort of category of tools is helping groups work together in the same room or in the same space, not just gathering stuff remotely, but sort of working together. And so some of you might remember it was called the Occupy movement, where people began to, it started in the United States around Wall Street, the big bankers and stockbrokers. People said that there was a 1% who were making all the decisions, the powerful and the rich. And so they had these encampments all around the country and around the world, I understand. And they had to learn how to make decisions in a large group. So Lumio tried to take some of the things they learned in these large settings and put them into a tech format. So it's a collaborative discussion and decision-making tool that was inspired by the Occupy movement. And it's an interesting sort of a smart approach, I think. Another tool that people who are like mediators or a group, maybe work with a union or you work with a group, Facilitate Pro at facilitate.com. It has a number of tools, like you start with brainstorming with a group. They might use their smartphone or a laptop and share ideas. And then the ideas are commented on, and then they're categorized into groups. And then people can say, which ones do I really want to work on, with thumbs up. And then you can have a vote to decide which ones the group is going to take forward, and you can produce reports. So it's a handy tool for people who are facilitating groups and are trying to keep track. We did a lot of this with newsprint and stickers, like sticky dots and markers, but this takes some of that work and puts it into tech. More recently, AI is really changing the game. Remesh is a tool that it is sort of live conversation where you send out a text message to a group up to 1,000 people, and then people are responding to the prompt, and then the system takes in all of the prompts, and then it will send out randomly something that somebody else said and send it to you and ask you to rate it or comment on it. And then it gathers all that together and begins to have some themes that are happening in the group, and then it has the group start to talk about those themes. So it's an interesting new large group tool that uses AI to do the text processing sort of on the fly. Another tool that I'm very fond of is Solia. Solia is a cross-cultural video discussion platform where it's designed to sort of support people from different cultural groups to interact and work together and sort of learn about each other. They use it in a lot of higher education settings. A number of my students from Wayne State were trained as facilitators to run these meetings. They would have people from Muslim and Christian religions getting together, and they would work on shared projects, and really, really nicely done. And they've been at it for a while. Solia.net. So I'm going to turn to this broad category of peace tech or peace building and tech and talk a little bit about this. Lisa Schurch, who's doing amazing work. She's at Notre Dame, Mennonite peacemaker, been very involved in international peace work. She wrote a paper on she's with a group called TODA, the TODA organization, and they're doing some really great research related to peacemaking. And one area they focus on is digital work, digital peace building. And so they did a paper recently where they talked about the different spheres where they were seeing activity in digital peacemaking, peace building. And you can see it's quite a long list of citizen journalism and cyber witnessing, conflict analysis and ceasefire monitoring, election monitoring, early warning systems, civilian protection, public opinion polling, crisis management, digital governance, monitoring and evaluation, responses to extremism and terror, fact-checking, peace narrative marketing, intergroup dialogue work, peace education through gaming, digital violence prevention, digital diplomacy, digital inclusion in peace processes, upstanding against bullying, digital social movements, digital hackathons and peace tech startups, peace engineering, designing things with peace in mind. So a whole lot of areas where people are getting creative and doing work. This was in 2020 when they did this evaluation, and there's been a lot more. As AI starts to come online, there's even more things happening. I wanted to tell you the story about a very early project that I was fascinated by. In 2010, there was an earthquake in Haiti, which is a poor country that was really devastated by this earthquake. And the problem at that time was that there was poor maps. There wasn't really good information about the city, and there was lots of collapsed buildings and people in trouble. And so there were some tech enthusiasts who decided they wanted to help. So this is sort of the rise of the digital humanitarian. And so they developed a system to crowdsource and review emergency texts and then tell responders where to go and what the situation was. So this is hard to see, but I'll just tell you about what this represents. They were able to convince the local telecom provider to create a text line, a number you could send a text to that you could send a picture, or you could describe what's happening near you. And then this was channeled to an online platform where volunteers would look at the text and decide, is this related to the disaster? What's it about? Is it about food? Is it about somebody's injured? And then it would be translated by volunteers who could translate it to another language. And then it would be sent to the right place. It would be put on a map. So you can see the next slide here. Ushahidi, which was a platform that had been developed during the Kenyan election violence period, where they decided that we needed to have a way to track events in real time that were happening that we care about. So they built this mapping platform where you could list information that you were concerned about. And so the group in Haiti developed this crisis map and put it up on Ushahidi so it could be used by interveners. And this is an example of what they put together. It was a great work of volunteers working together online from distant places to help a country in danger. Ushahidi has come a long way. They've developed their platform. It's a beautiful and easy to use platform. And it has different uses for sort of mapping where all your favorite beer halls are. You can use it for that, or you can use it for mapping health clinics or different things that you might care about. And you can create a deployment. There's a button when you visit their site where you can develop your own map if you'd like to. So it's really a nicely done project developed with cooperative work by a group, African. Another thing that's newer is so much of what happens now around social conflict is happening in social media. There's a lot of information that is causing conflict, misinformation, hate speech, lots of problems. And so there's a group that's Build Up, which is focused on building peace. They developed this open source social media listening platform where you can gather information from different channels in your community, and then you can classify it as to the different topics that you might be interested in, and then visualize it and explore it and use it to power your development. So the crisis mappers way back in 2010 had to go through all those texts themselves. This platform can do that for you. and it can use a lexicon of language of terms that you've developed that you want to pay attention to because they're important to the particular slurs that might be happening in your environment, for instance. So Phoenix is a really great new addition for managing that sort of fire hose of social media information and listening and making sense out of it. So this is a quick video about, it's a little bit dated now, but showing the sort of the creativity in the peace tech field. People are finding interesting ways to work together. There is sort of a sad moment in here where there was some work being done in Gaza on mapping households and families, which is probably completely useless now because of what's happened there. But let's take a look.
زه دلته د سمارټفون په ذریعه باندې مانیټور کوم د ډرایوینګ د مشخصاتو په هماغه مطابق مانیټور کوم چې څومره اندازه د دوی ارتفاع ده، څومره عرض دی، څومره طول دی، کړکۍ دروازې د هر څه د ډرایوینګ مشخصات مطابق مانیټور کوم.
Mulai dengan transparansi, dengan open data, dengan adanya keterbukaan, masyarakat akan percaya dengan pemerintahnya sehingga akan timbul partisipasi publik. Keluhan masyarakat berkaitan dengan macet, pelayanan publik ya, banjir dan sebagainya akan masuk ke dalam aplikasi kita yang akan ditindaklanjuti oleh aparat yang ada di wilayahnya.
And I did a mobile app. The name of this application is a Constitution app. It allows one to comment. The email address to the commission drafting the Constitution is already there.
Filluam me një projekt pilot me zyrat e hipotekave dhe spitalet në gjithë Republikën e Shqipërisë. Në momentin që qytetari me shërbimin, ne nisim një SMS ku e pyesim për cilësinë e shërbimit ofruar ose nëse është kërkuar rishfet në këmbim të këtij shërbimi.
So people are very creative when it comes to trying to improve life in their communities and build things that can make a difference. There's a group called Swiss Peace, which did some work on trying to look at this big landscape of peace tech that was going on and sort of provide a way for you to take a tour, to fly over it and see what's happening with digital peace building. And it has lots of sort of artifacts, things that you can look at, sample reports, sample documents. But the way it's set up is it uses something called Miro, which is a sort of a canvas where you can put documents in. It zooms in and out. So you can see here we're started far out. And then each of those dotted line areas is a topic area. And there are screens of information in each of those areas that you zoom into and you spend some time looking at. So I'm just going to kind of show you a little bit about this. It's got opportunities. It's got public inspiration examples. It has reports, courses that you can take, that sort of thing. And it's really, really nicely done for people who are interested in learning more about peace tech, the Swiss Peace platform. Another thing that's happening, of course, is that people need encouragement to build tools. And so there's something that I call peace tech incubators, where people get together and share what they're working on. So how to build peace, they call themselves Build Up. They have an annual peace tech conference. You can see where they've been. I took a little clip of one of their introductory things just to show you a sense of the different themes that they've had over the years. That was a bit of a blast there, but give you an idea of some of the energy of this group. I'm excited. The last year, it was in Barcelona in 2025, Barcelona, Spain. The theme last year was toward a pluriverse of peace, and they had three sub-themes between polarization and deliberation, between deterrence and nonviolence, between erasure and memory. And they had these like mini sessions where people would present what they're working on. And that stuff is put up on their YouTube channel. So you can go back and look at previous years and see what people are working on. But what really excites me is that Build Peace 2026 is going to be in Waterloo, Canada. Living in Detroit, Michigan, and so Canada is right across the bridge from me. And so I'm going to be making my way up to participate in Build Peace. Looking forward to that. There's a global peace tech projects map where you can see where different projects are happening and get an idea about what they're doing. There's also great stuff, games for peace. Playing and interacting is fun. So this is a catalog put together on peace games, 55 peace games in the catalog. And I wanted to mention a group that I'm very fond of that I've done some work with, Tactical Tech, tacticaltech.org. They've been going for years, and they sort of want to empower people to use technology, but they're also where the technology is doing things that's not good for us. It's surveilling us, or it is trying to persuade us, or it's addicting us. And so they have a variety of creative ways of kind of talking to the public about these issues. They have a whole section on info-activism where people learn how to document corruption or learn how to share information persuasively. They have a whole focus on the future, youth, and tech. And they develop these sort of, you can print them out and put them up on a library wall, or they put them in displays at a conference, and they're sort of interactive and fun ways to address these important topics. They have a concept called the glass room, where they bring light to topics related to tech, and they'll have these displays in different conferences. And so AI is a big theme right now, but Tactical Tech, I'm a big fan of their work, and I think I encourage you to take a look. This is one of their latest things. It's everywhere all the time, a playful exhibition for teens about AI. And it's developed, they had a youth initiative, What the Future Wants. They had 300 young people and 100 educators work together in creating this learning experience for people around between 13 and 19 years old, with different cards you interact with, questions you answer, and you can sort of print it out and display it at your event. It's pretty cool. So I promised in my description that I would try to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence. It's really hard to keep up with, but large language models are changing the game in terms of how we do this work. A couple things I want to mention: that multiple languages are needed for true cross-cultural dispute resolution. And so we have to find ways to expand the lexicon of our large models. There are groups developing hate speech lexicons for different regions, so that a curse word is different in different languages, or a demeaning phrase. And so you have to have lexicons that work in the language that you care about. AI has been largely trained on English, so this needs to change. There's bias built into the systems of data collection. So if you have bad data going in, bad information going in, the responses that AI gives you is going to be biased and problematic. We discovered this in the United States, where they were doing sort of crime prevention work, where they were trying to police areas where there were likely to be more crime, but they discovered that they were using old data, which was biased by biased policing. So people who already had a criminal record, it's because they were over-policed in the past. So it's a sad story, but the idea of bad data in, bad data out. And one of the issues we're trying to figure out now is how can human oversight affect the hidden algorithms that underlie these processes. Training AI to handle cultural conflict, it requires data. So many of the disputes, for instance, I work in the field of mediation, that's a very private process. So you don't want your particular case out in the world. So figuring out how to train, what data is relevant for training AI to handle conflicts is an important matter. There's some data sharing projects now. AI can summarize positions, predict outcomes at trial, and propose bargaining ranges, but they sort of lack the nuanced empathy and cultural awareness that can diffuse emotional standoffs and handle multiple stakeholders. AI is coming for the mediator's job. I went to last week to a demonstration of a tool called dispute.ai, and it's ADRI is the name of their AI mediator. And so it has a process where the chatbot interviews you and asks you a bunch of questions. It interviews the other person involved in the conflict, and then it proposes something. It says, here's what we think would be good. And then you're supposed to respond to it and decide if you like it or if you want to change it and resolve the conflict that way. So it was interesting to see it in work, but the people in the audience had lots of questions. It's like, this thing is not ready. Some of the questions, how many parties are supported? Can each party have multiple participants? What conflicts would this be appropriate for? What would it be inappropriate for? Are the proposals generated from prior case law? Does ADRI evaluate the evidence? Is ADRI trained to make proposals the parties are most likely to accept or what they think is correct? Can the party be directed to legal advice during this technology? What models are being used? So people are like, it's a beginning, but the mediators are nervous and think it's not ready yet. In terms of AI working in conflict mediation field, Helena Pugh from BuildUp summarized her view of the sort of the state of play in 2025. She says applications of artificial intelligence to mediation are all in one way or another focused on sense making of the opinions or positions of conflict parties, key stakeholders of the general public on matters related to a peace process. This includes making it easier to interpret information coming from consultative processes, understanding the positions of parties from previous statements, interacting with a digital twin to play a conflict forward, or finding bridge building positions that sort of help parties who are at odds find things that they care about together. Recent work has focused on AI agents, where they use data and interview materials to create sort of a composite character that can then be talked to and interacted with. An example is Ask Abdullah, who was modeling an interview with a combatant in Eastern Sudan, and Ask Amina, representing a woman living in a refugee camp. So policy workers or humanitarian workers could raise questions and talk with these characters to see how they might respond or what they might think of a particular idea or approach. It still needs work, but there's this idea of modeling characters. What is maybe more interesting in this area is that AI chatbots, lots and lots of people are using AI now, and they're having these very frank conversations with their computers and with their phones. And they've discovered that people are maybe a little bit more open when they're talking to their device personally, to their own device. And there's this idea that people maybe are open to changing their mind when they're talked to by their phone. So through ideas of narrative integration, belief updating, and information therapy, some of the goals of mediation to achieve a shift in positions to interests and needs, there might be some work to be done. So there's a hope that maybe we can find ways to sort of persuade people, consider different ideas than the ones that they've clung to for so long. The UN is very engaged with AI. It's sort of exciting to see the work that they're doing. I recently participated in a UN 2.0 Data and Digital Community Expo, where they had people presenting like 3 or 5 minute presentations on what they're doing in their particular UN office. So here's some of the ones that we saw. UNICEF developed guidance on AI and children, and this was a very important topic for UNICEF, and they found ways to develop input and begin to develop what are some safety guide rails that we might need when we're dealing with children and AI. The UN Habitat Organization developed Beam AI, Building an Establishment Automated Mapper. The thing that we looked at in Haiti, where we had to have individuals go in and look at maps and figure out was this a crushed building, what was happening. Now they can use satellite information and do that automatically with some training And it's really changing how quickly we can understand the movement of refugee camps or homeless shelters or a variety of different things. The finance platform, I don't know what UNFPA stands for, an AI platform for adolescents and youth, where they have a sort of ask sensitive questions. They had an app that helped people talk to this tool and get information about health and sexuality and that sort of thing. IOM developed a donor intelligence platform for local actors. They talked about how the United States pulling out of international aid, they had lost like 30% of their funding, and they had to develop new donors and new ways to pay for their projects. So figuring out what donors wanted, what their concerns were, was a good tool that they developed. UNDP, their whole organization, the development project, they wanted to bring AI to the full organization, and they needed to get people on board. People start using AI. So they developed this AI sprint. They talked about how to get people in your organization to use it and use it appropriately. The Human Rights Commission has developed an international human rights data exchange project where you can get information on data related to human rights and use it in your projects. Very useful. The UN Global Pulse has developed tools to have quick insight into what's happening in a hot crisis situation using AI to organize the information. And the World WIPO has done a great job of transcribing all of the presentations that happen in the UN platform in all the different languages and translating them and transcripting them so that you can go back and see the statements of various groups that you're concerned about. It's saving a lot of time and a lot of money. They have a AI resources hub called it's AI for Good is the name of the project, and they have this idea of all the different projects that are happening related to the UN. The other thing that's interesting is diplomats are really finding value in AI tools. If you're a small country and you go to the climate negotiations meeting, you're up against it. You have these large countries with lots of big delegations coming, and you might have 2 or 3 people. And so how do you keep up with all of that? And so they're developing tools to help you figure out what's the landscape on this particular issue, what are other groups' positions, what are they saying, and how can I sort of position myself most effectively. So they have a variety of tools for aiding decision-making, drafting, translation, negotiation, and trend analysis. There's a group called Diplo, which is a diplomacy training platform for diplomats and government workers that has been building AI tools specifically designed for statecraft and negotiation. So there's a whole whole ecosystem of tools they developed. I have a picture of one of them here. There was negotiations over the regulation of AI in the global space. And so this was their speech graph where they had a number of different issues. So the picture I have here is the cyber treaty question. Do we need an information treaty on cyberspace, international treaty? And then you can see all the different countries that were participating. You can go and select one of them and see sort of what their positioning is on that. And it helps you find out what's going on. And it groups ones that are sort of in coalition with each other. So you can see maybe where you might find a coalition. They've also done a lot of work on training public servants in AI. So they have a AI for Good skills coalition with lots of free courses that you can take to get in the groove with AI yourself. Just wrapping up, Peace Tech has evolved greatly over time. There are dual roles for technology, serving as both a neutral platform, sort of a go-between helping people solve conflicts, and as a tool for advocates who are engaged in struggle. The market for peace tech is less lucrative than conventional weapons and adversarial processes. There's a lot of money spent on militarism, so peace tech will need champions and return on investment arguments to continue to grow. I will note that clauses relating to the use of digital technologies are now being added to peace agreements in a more regular way. For instance, groups agree not to trash each other in social media platforms. Emerging powers The large language models of AI are providing new tools for peacemakers, but we have to really balance the risk versus the reward. And it really comes down to this idea of trust. Building and maintaining trust is really a key challenge for us, and we have to keep working on that, as peacemakers know. This is, again, that's a picture of my slides link there.